Hi and welcome to my FM20 save. My name is Mark and I'm playing as Arsenal in the FM20 beta. I did a stream last night and I just felt that maybe I should just do a little recap rather than having to let you watch, 2 hours worth of streaming. So all I've really done here is sort out positions, sort out tactics. So I think if I go first off through our tactics, and I won't go in as much detail, but I've basically done my take on the Arsenal Invincibles squad. So my main starting lineup this season will be Leno in goal. It will be Hector Bellerin at right back when he's due back, but he's not due back for a little while yet. We'll have David Luiz and Socrates in the middle. Now, David Luiz will be probably replaced once Holding comes back. Socrates is kind of your no-nonsense centre-back, and I think next season when Saliba comes back from his loan, they'll be our first choice, but at the moment we're going for David Luiz and Socrates. Kieran Tierney, another one who's out sort of long-ish term, but once he's back, then Kieran Tierney will probably replace Kolasinac. Kolasinac actually, stats-wise, and I will go through the sort of player stats, is actually not too bad in this game, and I know in last year's game as well he was a bit of a beast. On the right we've got Nicolas Pepe, which is probably who I'll begin to use, and of course we've got Reece Nelson as well, so they will share the position. I think to begin with I'll be using Reece Nelson a little bit more to help him come along, but also because Nicolas Pepe is not really clear in that position just yet. I have basically got two formations, so one slightly more attacking formation that probably when I go to that I'll be using Pepe a bit more. So then in the middle we've got Willock, and it will be Guendouzi who will be, if you like the main guy in there while we're playing, but is he on holiday? I think he's on holiday. But I think he's on holiday. So he's not available just yet. So we'll have Torreira as the defensive midfielder. And as a wide midfielder, at the moment I'm going for Gabriel Martinelli, who I'm actually going to make as a striker eventually. Really bitterly disappointed with his potential ability. But more importantly, we've got two big injuries in Emile Smith-Rowe, who's out for about 2 to 6 weeks. And then we've got Bukayo Saka, who's out for 2 to 3 months. So that's really going to aid their development. Like, this is a Project Youth save. Like, I'm going to be working a lot on the youth. So, and making use of the new development centre. So it's a little bit disappointing that those two have got injured. I think Emile Smith-Rowe was from the beginning anyway of the game, but certainly Bukayo Saka. So that's disappointing. Mesut Ozil will be the main advanced playmaker. I'm actually going to use Ceballos as like backup for him. And then we've got Aubameyang and Lacazette as the two strikers. As I said, Martinelli's intended as a striker. But at the moment, he's going to have to play out on the left wing because we've got no one else really there. So that's the main squad. I'll kind of go through my training plans. In fact, it probably makes sense to do my tactics. So this is a take on the Arsenal Invincibles from years ago. I've inverted it, and what inverted it means I've flipped it, so what was right is now on the left, what is on the left is now on the right. So for instance, Leno in goal instead of Jens Lehmann. You could argue that Lehmann wasn't a sweeper keeper, and maybe this is sort of the most I've deviated from what I would take to be the sort of roles that was played in the Invincibles. So take the sweeper keeper with a pinch of salt. We've got Hector Bellerin at right back. So Ashley Cole played as left back for Arsenal, and he was bombing up and down the left wing. He was very attacking. He supported all of our forward play. And so bearing in mind that Hector Bellerin has similar attributes in terms of pace and stamina, and actually the way that Arsenal currently play, he is playing in the Ashley Cole role. So on the other side, on the right, we used to have Lauren. So of course on the left, to balance that, we've got Kieran Tierney, who's playing in a slightly less attacking role. So he's playing as a wing back in support mode, which means that he will get forward, but maybe not quite at the same as Hector Bellerin. We had a ball-playing defender who used to play on the right-hand side of defence, who was Kolo Toure. So I've gone for David Luiz. As I said in time, we've got Mustafa, who can play as a ball-playing defender. And we've also got Rob Holding. And this year, the stats for Rob Holding have been really generous. Heading 16, marking. He's already improved. Oh no, it's Mustafa. Where's Rob Holding? I think he's injured as well. Yeah, really balanced is a phrase I'm using really on his attributes that you can see. 14, 15, so heading, marking, tackling, 14, 15, 15. Positioning's 15. His work rate's 15. Pace and acceleration. His jumping reach is 14. He's just a really balanced player, and they've been really generous with his potential ability. So hopefully in the next few years he can just move up that little bit, like his bravery, his determination. They're all sort of, they're better than average, but they're not superb, and hopefully I can develop him a little bit further. I think he's got the chance to be a really useful player for us if he's given the right chances. And as I said, apart from Socrates, we've got Saliba in the dev centre, or out on loan, I should say, who can also play as that central defender in defend mode. He's a bit young and a bit raw. Again, he's got a really good balance of stats attributes. So when he comes back, he'll be replacing Socrates. So on the right, as I said, we've got Nicolas Pepe, who is going to be more as like the inverted winger. I think actually an inside forward in our more attacking. But at the moment, I'm actually training him to be, when he comes back from holiday, I'll be training him to be a, there you go, he's on holiday. I'll be training him to be a wide playmaker in support mode. So that was the Bobby Perez role. Bobby Perez was on the left as I've inverted it. Pepe on the right, wide playmaker in support mode. If you read the write-up on what the wide playmaker in support mode does, you will see that it's very, very similar to what we saw Bobby Perez doing. I'll just leave it there, but the wide playmaker will act as the primary source of creativity, drifting inside to find space, which to play the killer ball, create chances. Coming from the wing also allows a wide playmaker to escape the hustle and bustle of the central midfield, and can result in him being unmarked by the opposition players. And you saw Bobby Perez do that a lot. And then, of course, that means on the left, we've got the Freddie role, who, of course, he played on the right, but we've inverted it on the left. So we've got the wide midfielder role in attack mode, because Freddie was a bit more attacking. So they're to perform defensive and attacking duties on the flanks, and that makes a lot of sense, supporting the forwards, midfield and defence when required. So yeah, Freddie was a bit more up and down, a little bit more box to box. Whereas Bobby Perez didn't have so much of defensive responsibility. Freddie will be expected to help out a little bit more. And then, of course, we've got Torreira and Guendouzi in the middle. So Torreira being like the Gilberto Silva role, the central midfielder in defend role. Okay. And then, of course, we've got the box-to-box role, which was like the Vieira. So non-stop dynamism of the box-to-box midfielder, it enables him to contribute greatly to both defending and attacking. In an attack, he pushes up to support the forwards, often surging late into the box to get at the end of crosses and pullbacks as well. just like the goal against Spurs when we won the league at White Hart Lane. So I think that's pretty fair. Mesut Ozil was in the Dennis Bergkamp role, so that's an advanced playmaker in attack mode. Now, it may not be where he's most suited, but Dennis Bergkamp was also scored a lot of goals. He got a lot of assists and a lot of goals. And then Aubameyang in the Thierry Henry, even in Thierry Henry's shirt. Henry obviously came in from the left, but we've inverted it. Aubameyang's going to cut in from the right. He's even got cuts inside from both wings as his as one of his player preferred moves, and he's a complete forward in support mode. So those two should balance each other out. Thierry Henry was also quite a provider, and Dennis Bergkamp scored quite a few goals as well. So I feel like that's a better balance rather than going advanced playmaker in support and then complete forward in attack mode. So that's the tactic there. I guess training-wise, I'm surprised that I couldn't change Guendouzi's training because there's nothing to suggest that he's... Oh, he is on holiday. So why doesn't it have... So anyway, training-wise, there's a few players that I haven't been able to configure their training because they're on holiday. The majority of them are here. So individually, all the goalkeepers on sweeper keeper for obvious reasons. The right backs who I've gone for, obviously Hector Bellerin, who's off injured at the moment. So we could play Callum Chambers there, but I'm actually retraining him and repurposing him to be a central midfielder in defence mode, and I'll come on to that. Hector Bellerin, I've got as complete wing back as passing, but he's still out injured at the moment, I believe. For another 2 months, so we're going to have to nurse him back. So it's not ideal, but I have also gone for Ainsley Maitland-Niles. I might eventually have him as a box-to-box, because you will actually see, if you see, these are the complete wing-back stats. He's kind of got everything there in his locker to do it okay. But if I was to change it to midfield centre in box-to-box, you'll see what I mean. That actually the box-to-box are quite similar as well. So, because of that, I'm going to train him for now and complete wing back and attack because there's very little change. And as I said, box-to-box might be something, once I get Hector Bellerin back, once we have next summer, that I move him to be a box-to-box. I don't think it's going to hinder his development too much. One thing, by the way, just as an aside in this game that I really like is the fact that you can now get them to additionally focus on crossing alone. And I think that's really cool. Really, really cool. That wasn't in last year's game. And neither was being able to focus aerially. There's also a whole host of goalkeeping focuses as well, which is really good. So I'm really impressed with that. So at left back, Kieran Tierney will be your main man, but he's out injured as well. So, and his stats look pretty good for a complete wing back. Sorry, for a wing back in support mode. So, I've got him at the moment looking at his passing technique and positioning, but it might be actually that his marking, his that does work on his marking. Okay, fine. Yeah, so his defensive positioning is what I've got him working on when he comes back. He's got a whole host of player-preferred moves, actually, Kieran Tierney, isn't he? Runs with ball down the left, knocks ball past opponent, hugs line. Gets crowd going. That's a new player trait. Yeah, I like that. I really like that. This guy is going to be a superstar in real life. But anyway. So in defence, I've kind of gone over them, but we've got Holding, we've got Mustafi, we've got Socrates, got David Luiz, and we did have Callum Chambers, but I'm repurposing him as a central midfielder, like backup for Torreira, and I'll show you in a minute. But Socrates, it's a bit late to start teaching him aerial, but it is his weakness, so I've just added that as his focus. It's probably not going to make much of a difference. Rob Holding, I've already kind of looked at, but he's going to be like our main ball-playing defender. We've got Mustafi as backup. His marking's a bit low, and I think his decision making as well in real life. So I've actually got him working on defensive positioning, which does his marking. That's his weak spot. And it does do his decision making as well, which is probably why I've done that. So, remember, we're playing a game here. This is not real life, and I'm going to give him a chance. I know he's been a bit rash. I've actually liked his attitude in real life recently. I think he's got his head down. He's trying to work for a place. When you look at this, maybe David Luiz wasn't necessary as a player. He's also on a lot of money. I'm going to make use of him as and when, but he probably, to be honest, more than anything, is good as a tutor. If you look at his determination and his leadership. So I'll probably end up having him as a tutor if I haven't already. I can't remember if I've already done that. Kolasinac I've been over. Joel Lopez is a player in the youth. His potential ability isn't very good in this, but in last year's game he ended up being really good for me. So I'm going to persevere with him and just give him a bit of time and see if he's able, from training with the first team, from mentoring, and from giving him a little bit of first team football in the Cups and maybe the Europa, to see if we can sort of push him on a bit. So it's a bit of an experiment. I think I've got him tutored as well. Kolasinac I mentioned earlier. But he is a beast. And actually, again, in last year's game, I know this is not last year's game and the database is different, but he did end up being a very, very good player for me in my Arsenal save. So central midfield, from a box-to-box position, we've got Guendouzi. There's nothing that's in natural position, so I'm not going to talk about him too much. His stats are also looking good, and his potential is okay. I kind of feel like they've been a bit harsh on the Arsenal players with potential, but maybe they've been generous with the current ability, and maybe that's where the two are balancing each other out. So that was Guendouzi. Joe Willock I'm going to use as a box-to-box as well. I prefer him in that deeper role because he's younger, he's got the stamina, and he's got the work rate, although this doesn't show that. So I'm actually training him as a box-to-box, and his defensive positioning, which needs a little bit of work in the decisions, positioning and marking. So hopefully that will bring him on. And the other one is, who else did I put? Oh, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, but I'm kind of, at the moment, I'm putting him as a complete wing-back while Bellerin's out. But it may be that I eventually repurpose him as a box-to-box. I'm just a bit scared of his attacking attributes, the finishing. But he's young enough to recover from that if it's just one season. So Torreira as the defensive midfielder for obvious reasons. So he's, when he's back from injury or from holiday. But he will be a central midfielder in defend mode. And you can see already that he's got some really good stats in there. And I'll probably focus him around, again, his marking, defensive positioning, and his decision making, probably. He hasn't really got any standout weaknesses already, which is mental. So that's Torreira. Callum Chambers, again, it's hard to... Oh, actually, he's back from training, isn't he? So in central midfielder defend, the biggest problem for him is actually going to be learning the new role. But he's got all the right attributes in the right places to do an okay job. So that's why I'm doing it, is more for cover. And it's still working on his kind of defensive attributes anyway, so I don't think it should do too much damage. I'm not having him as a right wing back because he's just not quick enough. So I'm just not having him as that. I see that he's doing a job for that at Arsenal, and that's fair enough, but not for me. Granit Xhaka, I guess, is the elephant in the room, and I feel like long term he's probably going to be a bit. He's going to feel a bit pushed out. I don't know. I don't feel that I can use him as a box-to-box, really. And I don't feel... He's just kind of in between, isn't he? Like, he's put as a deep line playmaker there. He's kind of an in-between. He can't be box-to-box, really, because he's not quick enough, and he's not good enough at positioning. And he can't really be a central defender in defend mode, because his defensive, his marking and his tackling's too low, his concentration's too low, and his decision, it's okay. But yeah, really, he's an attacking player. If you look at his teamwork, his vision and his passing, I mean, maybe he would have been better as an advanced midfielder in this game. So speaking of advanced midfielder, we've got Danny Ceballos, who I'm going to use in the advanced position as backup for Mesut. And of course, we've got Mesut Ozil himself, the legend that is Mesut, who I'm going to be playing as an advanced midfielder in attack mode. Although the two attributes don't seem to change at all. Oh, acceleration matters more in attack, apparently. His stats are gleaming. Nothing more needs to be said about this guy. So what am I actually training him on? Advanced playmaker in attack mode for obvious reasons. And I've got him working on endurance. Okay. I mean, he's too old to work on strength in this game. So then wing-wise, we've got Emil Smith-Rowe, who I'm going to be playing as a wide playmaker in support mainly. No, I'm not. Wide midfielder in attack mode. So it's a bit of a learning curve for him. But he's out injured at the moment. And then we've got Saka, who got injured in a friendly, literally the last game I played. So really the width is where we're going to be struggling for a bit. And it may be that I go to my other tactic when we're chasing the game. And then on the right, obviously, we've got Pepe. Those stats are pretty special. And we've got Reece Nelson, who I'm training there, and is going to get a lot of game time. It may be, if we really struggle, it might be that we end up using Reece Nelson on the left, because he can play there naturally, and play as that inverted winger. I'll show you my tactics in a minute for like the second tactic. Then other than that, you've got Martinelli, who I want long term to be a striker. He is a natural in the left winger position as well, and does have the cuts inside from left wing. The guy is a beast. I think they've been harsh on him in these stats, but I'm actually training him to be a striker long term. In actual fact, I probably should be looking training wise in the meantime to have him training to play out on the left, but we'll see. I might move it around every month. And then you've got Lacazette, who's just class, moves into channels, he's a proper striker. Going to be playing him as a complete forward in support mode for most of it. But I do think there are a few changes to my more attacking formation. Then you've got Oba as well, who's got places shots, which I love in a striker. Knocks ball past opponent, cuts inside from both wings, so you can play him out left and out right. I don't think he's a natural in those positions, though. He's accomplished. Okay. So we do have kind of options in out wide, but really we need to start getting players out there back. So my final tactic, just quickly, so my more attacking tactic, it's very similar in terms of roles. The main difference is that in fact, it's very, very similar. It's just the wide men are pushed further forward. So that's why we might end up using it while we've got this injury crisis, is that we've got Pepe, who plays naturally as an inside forward. He would be in support mode, though, wouldn't he? But nevertheless, we've got Gabriel Martinelli, who's about the only left winger we've got at the moment. And that is his kind of natural. So actually, I think the next friendly I do, and I'll do it on my stream tonight, I think the next friendly I do, I will adopt this as the tactic. We should have players coming back from injury. And actually, if I look at Reece Nelson, he can play as a winger. I'm sure he can play as an inside forward without too much problem. But seeing as he was also a natural on the left, and he can play as an inverted winger, so there you go. Those are our problems sorted on the left for a bit. And if we looked at Oba, if I played him out left, he could play as an inverted winger on the left, or yeah. I think we're going to be all right, even with those injuries. It's more about the development of the players that are going to miss out. So those are my tactics, really. So I hope it helps. I hope they make sense. As I said, I'm actually going to try this for the initial, for the next game, and see how we get on with that. Next, especially, I've never heard of this team before, but they're a Greek team. So I hope this helps. I didn't really go over the individual or the tactics. I do in my live stream that I did last night. So I'm not going to go over this too much, but these are kind of the... I know that's for the... Right. So for the Arsenal Invincibles, these sort of team instructions there. Very quickly, I've gone for attacking width and wide. I actually tell the wide playmaker to sit narrower so that the more attacking right midfielder can bomb forward. Pass into space, play out of defence, passing direct as standard. Tempo's higher, I've told them to be more expressive. In transition, so I toyed with the idea of counter pressing, but actually, if I remember the Arsenal Invincibles, we tended to hit people on the counter. So actually regrouping and let the opposition team come onto us makes sense. And then when possession's been won is when we counter. The same with the distribute quickly. It plays into the whole counter-attacking. And Arsenal were very unpredictable when they were invincible. So I haven't specified where we're going or how we're distributing because I don't think that's necessary. Out of possession, I haven't changed anything for this. I don't think it's necessary. Like you could toy with like the lower defensive line. Probably like invite them onto us more to then be able to counter-attack. Line of engagement, again, I haven't touched that because if I've got a standard defensive line, if I did a lower line of engagement, then we're going to squeeze them a bit more, but also it means that we've got further to move into in transition when we win the ball back. Obviously, we're not using an offside trap because we're not really playing a high defensive line, and the pressing I've done is slightly more urgent. Rather than being like urgent and none at all. So there is a bit of a press, but if you press too hard, it kind of goes against the whole regroup. So we want to regroup, then we want to press, rather than being like constantly pressing. So hopefully that helps. I can't think of anything more that I'll go on to. I mean, in the slightly more attacking, there are a few changes in that. Like the higher line, which is when you will need a sweeper keeper a little bit more. We've got their prevent short goalkeeper distribution. This is actually this tactic here, the more attacking one, is a stock one from the game itself. So I haven't played around with it too much. So it's even got distribute to centre backs. So it's like the slower build up. The same as, funny enough, it's the direct opposite that we're going to counter press when we don't have the ball. And then when possession's been won, that we hold our shape. So it's a bit more of a patient build up, a bit more indirect. And then in possession, attacking width will be fairly narrow. So it's pretty much the direct opposite of what we got here. Still playing out of defence, shorter passing, less dribbling, and basically patiently working the ball into the box. So very, very, very different. So it's probably good to actually play a pre-season friendly with it. It is the tactical style of the tiki-taka. Sorry, I'm actually going to... do that. And I'm actually going to save this because I haven't saved it. So I'm going to call it MB Invincibles. What happened to that IA? Right. So there we have it. Hopefully that helps. And yeah, let's see how we get on. I'm going to do a stream tonight. And I'm going to continue with the videos, especially while the game's raw. Really enjoying this game. hopefully you enjoyed watching this too. So thanks very much. Cheerio for now.